G'day, welcome back. This is the next video in my series on chess statistics. And today we're going to do a deep dive into the numbers behind the queen versus bishop pawn endgame. Done a couple of videos on this before in my edge cases, going through what the drawing zone is and why the drawing zone is like it is for the defender and the attacking side. And I want to go in a bit more detail today. How often does this endgame occur? And then more particularly is the common errors which people make, and just sort of how often they occur, and sort of just actually that you learn a lot in terms of the mistakes other people have made. So this is kind of a combination of a chess statistics plus my learning from other people's mistakes series. But I thought it sat most relevantly in this bucket. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is just I did that recent video on corresponding squares where I covered Wilhelm Leick, and I came across this interesting situation where I showed in the video. We'll just run over it again quickly. Let's go to the capture screen. Is that the drawing zone of that endgame is actually relevant to his solution, right? So just to remind you, so we've got this position here, which is 1 for white. If he drops back king to d4, black has to choose a side, white goes the other way. But if white goes to one of the sides himself, in fact, in this case, king to e5, black is now drawn because it's king to e8. White picks up the pawn, black is the opposition. White can't force his pawn through. It's a draw. And then white says, okay, well, let me try and go back to where we were before. And so if black goes back to the middle, he might lose. So this is where black's counterattack works. He has to go to the king side. White can kind of block. So that'll be a draw. So white has to, there's this tricky move here to force king e6 loses, has to go to g6, just keep running. So white runs, black runs, take. And I've done the count. And you can see what happens here. That go back to this point. He needed to play king g3. That's the only drawing move. White will move his king back. Don't know why this is not coded up. Very strange. And because black is in the corner side and the zone is smaller, come back to what the zone looks like that, outside the zone. So it's a draw. So this is only a draw because black has this counterattack, which leaves the white king outside the zone. So that's quite interesting. So we'll just close that now. I've got two versions skid running here. Okay, cool. Right. That's what got me interested in looking in this a bit more detail. Okay, so let's have a look, sort of a look at some of these numbers, right? So first of all, we have to use a Scoutfish to work out how many games there are. Now, I just quickly bring this to the fore. Use Scoutfish many times. You send a query in to the Scoutfish software. Okay, this is I guess just a reminder of the drawing zones. Come back to that. But if you're on the corner side, you're better off. If you're not in the corner side, the drawing zone's bigger because you basically have to spend a tempo or two running across into the corner and you block your pawn for one move. Okay, so Scoutfish, remember this idea, you download it. I've shown it in many of my other videos. And basically you send the query in, and depending on what database you start off with, I think I'm using Lumbra's, about 10 million games. Query, obviously if you queried for white move, queen side castle, you get a lot, right? So that's what we're looking at. So I'm doing this query, which is, there's two queries. White has a king and a queen, black has a king and a pawn, and then we're looking for this subfen. Now, there's 10 of them there. I'll show them in a minute. And then the other side is black, the same thing. White has the pawn, black has the queen, right? And just quickly go game, new game, edit, set up, clear board. What I was trying to do in that set of 10 queries, let's say the white, say the black pawn, be better, is there. Then the king could be on any of those squares around here. I'm going to did that square. Anyway, I was basically looking for positions where the king was supporting the pawn. If your king is here, the problem is the queen could be there. I mean, there are obviously different ways of doing the search, but that's just sort of the first brush I've taken at it. And then what you see is that we get 500 games as white and 400 games as black. It's only about 1,000 games, which is like 0.01%. Maybe if you search a bit differently, it'd be a bit higher than that, but it's quite a rare endgame. Of course, it may not be a rare possible outcome. So people might agree to a draw or do something else because they can see this drawn or winning endgame on the horizon. But anyway, that's how often it kind of has happened. So I've got 1,000 games to work with. Let me have a look. We'll keep on going through this. And then what I then look is who do people play it accurately or not? And this is something else we've looked at before. For this, we're going to use Python chess. Just go down to, actually, I think This will do. So you load up your 1,000 games. This shows the approach of looping through each game, and then you loop through the moves in each game. And what I do is I move to the position. I then do a table-based query. Should this be a win or a draw? And then I play through the moves and see if it is a win or a draw. And if there's an error, I spot it and I report it. So that's what we've done. And then what I get out of that is about 60, 70 games, right? So basically, okay, see. So this is the percentage. Okay, so there are two results here. Here is the overall win and draw rate. And you can see it's about 80% win rate for whoever has the queen. Okay, so that's on average. And then this shows you the actualities of it. This is it's winning for the strong side, and it was 506. You can see, okay, the winning was 531. That means there's a 25 or so mistakes where a win lost fell to a draw. And then the drawing side should have been 424 draws. There was 369, so there's 55 people who are supposed to be drawing, and it was a win. So this is more mistakes by the defending side, which kind of makes sense. And then this listing here is the most common error. Now I've actually flipped it and mirror imaged it, right? So it's all equivalent, right? So the biggest mistake is king b2 to b1. And in fact, in a lot of cases, this should be king b2 to king a1 or the equivalent, king g2 to h1. Shouldn't be holding onto your pawn. We'll see that later on, right? And so that's one error where you've got to go into the corner, and this is the other error, which is fairly prominent, where people step in front of their pawn when they should once again go into the corner, not fearing the opposing queen taking the pawn, because then it's stalemate. So anyway, so that's the two main errors: holding on your pawn when you don't need to, and jumping onto your pawn. I kind of summarize that here. Don't go in front, don't go in the corner, and don't hold the pawn at the wrong time. So this is a combination of things we're talking about. And transition as well. Okay, so good. So now we'll close that. So I've got a set of games to go through here. First of all, let's just have a quick look at a few games which I found appealing. The first one, we'll just sort this by white, yellow. There's a Keimer game, just to give you a sense of what actually happens. So this game should be drawn because black in the corner. The drawing zone actually cuts off on the fourth rank, so it should be drawn. Keimer's just checking. Okay, checking. Okay, checking. And this is what I was saying. King h1 is the drawing move. His opponent played king to g1. Now the king comes in, actually moves his king up. He's just lost now. Yep. Okay. If he'd gone into the corner at this stage, and now white approaches, we promote. And the difference is that this square is available, so there can be checks and all sorts of things. So anyway, that was the mistake. And let's have a look. Another one I found was, go back. Right, so this is the position I wanted to show, and this is about this transition, people making the wrong transition decision. Right, so in this position, it's better to move your rook away, h pawn versus a g and h pawn. But unfortunately, when he takes, this is now a winning position for white. And let's have a look at why. White's going to be able to march in. His king's in too strong a position. But then what's the winning technique? We go and grab the pawn, grab it. So we grab it so we can get out, and you look at this. The king got deflected to the wrong side, and the king's inside the zone. So that was a sort of another theme I wanted to get into, making the wrong mistake, transitioning into a pawn endgame, which is lost because the stronger side's king is in the winning zone. And then I had one more example to have a look at it. It's quite clever, but also just sort of shows you some of the points you got to look out for. So this position right here, what do? King g2. You don't want to pin your pawn. King g2. This is actually g3. So the move I was looking at. Now, unfortunately, you got to sort of calculate all these things. Queen c1 check. King gets forced up. Queen c2 check. Back. Queen d1 mate. Right. So you can see this is quite clever that actually you don't push your pawn here. You just focus on your most advanced pawn. Just one of those sorts of themes. Okay, cool. Right. So good. Now, so that's been looking at just a few of the sample games I ran through, and now I want to look in more detail at these errors. As I say, so if you think of the numbers, 10 million games, 1,000 of them have this endgame in them, and about 70 of them have errors in them. So that gives you the error rate. So although this endgame is pretty rare, the error rate in it's pretty high. So it'd be good to sort of be a bit more familiar with it. So we're going to here's the error file. Now let's go through a few of these games. So okay, I'm going to say one other thing here that I've used that. Remember that thing I did last time, which was making the changes to skid, which left your annotation up there all the time, which I find quite useful in this case. So let's go back to the relevant point in this game. Just going to go through a few examples. I mean, it's quite interesting here, right? So this is drawn position, check. So because we're in the corner, it's the pink section. So the white king is outside the zone. Okay, it's okay to go in front now. That's fine. Takes the rook. Move back, check. You can play king a2 or king a1. Both of them fine because you got to think about this. Is your pawn attacked or can you queen it, right? So no need to hold on to the pawn. Unfortunately, black in this game put his king in front of the pawn. So now it's lost. King advances. It's just lost, right? Don't put your king in front of the pawn when you don't need to. In fact, did I look at the second game as well? This is drawn. This is outside the zone. Still drawn. This is the same one we saw before. You should play king to h1. You don't need to hold the pawn. It's not really attacked. Be stalemate. Unfortunately, the player played to king b1, and now you are a better example of what I was trying to demonstrate. You can queen, doesn't help. Queen can't defend against the different checkmates. Whereas in the other lines, maybe you would have the g1 square to move on to. Just get a bit of a sense. So you can see that we've had a king to c1 blunder and a king to b1 equivalent blunder. Look, this game, it's drawn at this stage. Same mistake. This is actually a very big blunder people are making a lot of the time. Yeah, it is what the most common blunder. Yeah, king b2 to king b1 is the biggest blunder people make in this position. And then this is holding your pawn when you don't need to, and this is going in front of your pawn when you don't need to. Right? That's the two most frequent blunders. Let's have a look at another game. Go to the end, come back. This is drawn, it's drawn, it's drawn. There must have been something else going on here. So this is winning. You can see king is on the wrong side, black king's on the wrong side, but the white king is in zone. Now, I think we've done this before. There's some series of checks you need to do. Still winning. That's the move. That's right, because this is where there's checkmate motifs in the center of the board. So let's go through that. Queen h1 check. King gets forced up. Queen g2. Pawn is pinned. And you'd think you'd go there, but this is the issue. Got the mate there on d2. Right? So that's the sort of technique you have to do. So this one, if we go back to this position, should have played the check in the corner, pushed the king back into the center. That's the way to win that game. So that was a mistake by the attacker. Okay, let's have a look at this one. One ends up as a win. So where's the mistake? He's drawn. King is so far away. Oh, that move was terrible. King just be king b2, right? This is this situation where I said where if the white queen can sit in front of the pawn and black is just take a sort of total gimme. That is Barina Szabo, not the Szabo from 1953, by the way. Wouldn't expect that blunder. So you can put that there. Don't let queen in front. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one. So all these things, you can still go through them. I've isolated these 67 games, and all of them are fascinating in their own way. So this should have been a draw. At what point was this a draw? We can go back to the position where it was a draw. It's a draw here. You can see that the white king, the attacker's king, is outside the zone. And it's the same mistake. Should just play king h1. Went in front of the pawn. Now it's over. So first of all, the important points here. Don't transition to an endgame if you're not sure of it. Don't go in front of the pawn. Don't go in the pawn at the wrong time. No need to hold your pawn if you don't need to, and don't let the queen go in front. Now, as you can see, I've got these 67 games. Could go on and on and on. Actually, let's just pick. So that Keimer one was actually a high-level game. How about this one? We'll just pick this high level. The Schreier one we just went through. Schreier, so Lucci 2000. So maybe that's okay. Let's see what the problem here was. Let's go to the end of the game. Just go backwards. So it's a draw at this stage, outside the zone, hitting the pawn. This is that extra technique that you did need to know. King 2, this loses because the white king will march into here. So what you do is you do this shouldering off technique. The point is that the white queen cannot sit in front of the pawn. So whatever white does, let's say queen h3, check in by the engine. Now we go back to e2, and there's no sort of combination there of the king marching in and the queen covering the second rank. That's another one. Sometimes you do need to go behind the pawn, and it looks like when we look at the errors, the blunders, a few people do that, but they do it at the wrong time. So just only do it when it's necessary, possibly when the attacking king is in the equivalent of that square. Let's go down and see if we can find. Here's one. It's equal opportunity. So this is actually a game which was won, which was not won. Let's go back and see why. Winning in this position. This is this technique again, blocking the king back. King has to move back, for instance. And then now we're close enough. Right, you pushed him back into the middle, and then we're on the orange squares in time. Right, so that's another sort of reminder of that. Okay, cool. So look, this I find is very interesting. Just sort of looking through the how often it occurs, how often people are errors, and in particular, what sort of errors are people making in this particular endgame, so we don't do them ourselves. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you very much for watching.